edition, Mr. Irrelevant, presented by Door County Distillery. Good to be back with you. I'm Alex Strouf from the Gruber Law Offices. One call, that's all. Studio at the Avenue in beautiful downtown Milwaukee. Hunter Vaughn in beautiful downtown Madison at the Everlight Solar Studio at the ESPN Madison offices. Tiny Hands and I hanging out with you on this fine Wednesday. Lots to get to. We're going around the Wisconsin sports world. We'll talk Bucks. We'll talk Brewers. We'll talk Packers. And we will wrap it up with some celebrity talk as well, as we always do. And after Monday's debacle, it's what we learned. So we're going to learn what Hunter learned about movies or video games, I would assume. So we will do that as always. Hunter, am I off on that? Is it movies or video games related?
No, it's actually, well, I mean, I could tie it to video games, but it is not. So.
Okay, good for you. I put you in a box. You're operating outside the box. That's a positive. Well, let's start with the NBA draft, which kicks off tonight. Tips off tonight. Now, weird part. We talked a little bit about this last week. The NBA draft now split into 2 days for the first time this year. The first round starts tonight, per usual. 7 o'clock. Get going, get through the 30 picks, and then we stop. And then tomorrow at 3 p.m. our time, Central Time, we kick back up and we do round number 2. So the odds are Bronny James, the son of course, of LeBron James, will get drafted. I would be surprised if he does not get drafted between today and tomorrow. I would guess it will probably be tomorrow. But Bronny James listed as the 55th best prospect available in this year's draft by ESPN.com. There are 60 picks in the NBA draft. That tells you Bronny James likely to get drafted. Now, you understand what comes with the Bronny James territory. Number one, he's very young, right? He's 19 years old. There's a lot of development to be had. He's probably not NBA ready quite yet, but a lot of those second-round picks aren't. So is somebody that's maybe not a championship contender for the upcoming season ready to take a swing in the maybe early second round? Like I'm looking at Portland right after the Bucks at pick 34, the 4th pick in the second round. I look at maybe somebody like Memphis or Charlotte that might just want to take a swing at Bronny James. Or is it the exact opposite? Is it a team that is absolutely a contender, just looking to get that little publicity edge? Could it be Indiana at pick 36? Could it be Milwaukee at pick 33? Or could he actually fall way down to pick 55, where he is listed as the 55th best prospect? And guess who holds pick number 55? That would be the Los Angeles Lakers, the team in which his dad plays on. J.J. Redick, now the head coach. We will see. Bronny James, certainly the most interesting name when it comes to the NBA draft, but I imagine a name we will have to wait until tomorrow to see where he ends up. As for some other names, Tyler Kolek and Oso Iguodaro, each from Marquette University, awaiting their names to be called over the course of today and tomorrow. Kolek likely today, could be early tomorrow, and Iguodaro likely tomorrow. I would imagine he also does end up getting drafted. So 2 Golden Eagles awaiting their drafting status as well over the course of the next 48 or so hours, 24 plus hours, really. But look, I mean, the NBA draft is always a spectacle. It's always something to watch. It's something I always make a point to watch, especially the quote-unquote lottery, right? The 14 teams that don't make the playoffs who are then in the lottery. The Atlanta Hawks were the underdog. They ultimately end up making and getting the number 1 pick from that ping-pong ball machine. What do they do at pick 1? There's not a ton of super sexy college names available. Couple of UConn guys, right? DC and Stephon Castle, Devin Carter from Providence, Cody Williams from Colorado. You've got Dalton Connect, who had a terrific year for Tennessee. You've got some fun college names, but then you look at ESPN's mock draft, and who do they have going to the Milwaukee Bucks? Kyle Filipowski from Duke. It's Grayson Allen all over again, if that's actually what comes to fruition. So there's some fun names, that are available from the college landscape, and Hunter and I are both big college hoops fans, so those are the things I keep an eye on. Right, Dalton Connect is a guy who I think can really make an impact at the next level. He'll be a lottery pick, but where does he go? The situation obviously dictates how good you can be. That's the case in the NFL. That's the case in the NBA. But the weird part about the NBA is you've got playoff teams still in the lottery due to trades. How about the Oklahoma City Thunder, who just had a really nice season? They've got pick number 12. Could that be a spot for Dalton Connect? That's something to keep an eye on. Hunter, go ahead. I know you've got thoughts on the NBA draft.
Well, my first one's a question for you. If you claim to be a quote-unquote NBA guy, shouldn't you be all fired up about this? You said that you really only try to watch the first 14 picks. I feel like a real NBA guy would actually be trying to watch all of this and would be super locked in on everything.
Hold on a minute. That seemed unnecessary. The Bucks have picked 23, so I'll be watching then. You know, hopefully
but an NBA guy would be watching all of it and would be locked in. Just call yourself a fake NBA guy.
I'm a little bit busy at 3 o'clock tomorrow, so I don't know that I'll be watching all of it pick by pick. But
there's TVs in the studios. Don't make excuses. If you're an NBA guy, you would be locked in.
This is ridiculous, dude.
You're not an NBA guy. Just admit it.
No, I'm an NBA guy. I think it's ridiculous to say I'm not, right? Like yesterday, I was walking through the office, and one of our big bosses pulls me over. He goes, Strouf, you're an NBA guy. What do you think of this Josh Giddey, Alex Caruso trade? I go, well, the Thunder get a little bit better short term. Giddey still got some potential to reach, but Chicago seems like an interesting spot for him because they're not very good. So, yeah, I had thoughts on the Caruso-Giddey trade. Hunter, do you have thoughts on the? No, actually, I regret
No,
asking.
I don't because I'm not an NBA guy, and I don't claim to be an NBA guy. And whoever this person was probably would have said the same thing to any content teammate from the ESPN team and would have said exactly the same thing, just switch out the name.
Interesting.
You just happen to be in the right place at the right time.
What if I tell you the person that asked me this question was your direct boss? What if I told you that?
Same exact response. Yep.
Okay.
I think it was just you were the right place at the right time.
Okay. All right. Fair enough. I don't. I think I'm well respected as an NBA analyst and an NBA insider locally. I think people come to me for my NBA takes. Speaking of my NBA takes, the NBA draft ain't going to make or break the Bucks offseason. I don't know if this is breaking news by any means, but this is so low on the totem pole of what actually affects the Bucks offseason. Right? Like you anticipate having your core three, Chris Middleton, Giannis Antetokounmpo, and Dame Lillard back for the Bucks. Outside of that, though, what does this team look like? And I don't think the NBA draft necessarily dictates what the future of the Bucks looks like at all, right? Like Andre Jackson Jr. not going to be a starter, but could he be a real role player for this team next year? Sure, excuse me. But what could, in addition of a younger, more athletic wing player bring, or some guard depth, right? Like those are the things that with free agency approaching this upcoming weekend, what will the Bucks do to take that next step? Because they clearly don't have enough right now. Like their core three, if they're healthy, that is a championship recipe. But as you've seen over the course of the last 6 years with multiple different champions, you need depth. The Bucks didn't have that, right? I mean, it was clearly an arms race in terms of who had the better depth in that round one series between the Bucks and the Indiana Pacers. You need to go out and get somebody. And I don't necessarily have names, right? Like I need to see who the Bucks can take up, right? Like I don't need a massive splash, but I need depth. I need your 7th and 8th guys to be improved. I imagine they need to upgrade at center. I don't think Brook Lopez will be back next year for the Bucks. So you need a center. But again, that's not a huge implication when you have 3 really good scoring options. So these don't need to be the sexiest signings. They just need to be healthy, young, and more athletic than what you had a year ago. Because when you saw Dame and Giannis go down in that playoff series, it was brutal. And you just didn't have the depth that it takes to win a championship. So that's what I have my eyes on when it comes to the Bucks. I'm curious who they take in the NBA draft. But think about, especially the Bucks, the last decade. Who's been like a round 1 pick by the Bucks that had an immediate impact? There was a round 2 guy who won Rookie of the Year, Malcolm Brogdon, way back when. He was a round 2 pick, ended up winning Rookie of the Year because it was a really bad rookie class, but he found a way to carve up some minutes and ultimately win Rookie of the Year. outside of Jabari Parker. Like, I can't think of a legitimate, real starter or impact piece immediately for the Bucks that they drafted in round 1. Thon Maker was an attempt. Yeah. It just meant DJ Wilson was a flop. I'm curious to see what they do at pick 23. I'm really curious what they do at pick 33 because I think Bronny James is on the table there. I don't want Bronny James to be a Buck, but boy, could you imagine the chit chat we're having in about 27 hours if the Bucks take Bronny James at pick 33. So something to keep an eye on. Don't think it happens, but we will see. NBA draft starts tonight. Coverage on ESPN begins at 7 o'clock. All right, let's move on. This is interesting from Jeff Darlington, ESPN's NFL insider. As obviously a ton of talk all offseason with quarterback extensions galore, Jared Goff, Trevor Lawrence, we await Tua Tagovailoa. The market is the market. And look, obviously we've talked a ton about Jordan Love, and he's one of those guys that hasn't signed yet. Tua, Dak Prescott, and Jordan haven't signed a deal yet. And as you see Trevor Lawrence signing a $55 million deal, and you see Jared Goff signing a $53.5 million deal, you think to yourself, I wonder what Jordan Love is going to make. Is it going to be $56, $57, $58, $59 million a year? You anticipate it'll be somewhere in that ballpark. But here's Jeff Darlington yesterday on NFL Live on ESPN talking about Tua Tagovailoa and some of the discussions going on in Miami. I don't know if it has a direct implication on Jordan Love, but it is something to think about. Here's Jeff Darlington yesterday on ESPN.
But right now, there's 5 words that are looming over this contract negotiation, and they're the words that came out of Tua's mouth. The market is the market. He said that after Jared Goff had signed his deal and before Trevor Lawrence signed his. The complicated part of this is the Dolphins could point at that Jared Goff deal and say, well, we're not the Detroit Lions. We're not making that decision. But when Trevor Lawrence then leapfrogs it, you've got a situation because right now, the Dolphins are not offering the contract that is the market value based on those other deals that were done. So if this gets there, it's just going to require more negotiations. And we're not to panic point just yet. I just think that my optimism earlier has to be slightly scaled back at this point, given all of those factors currently in play.
Jeff, real quick, but so when you say the Dolphins right now aren't offering what the market of those other, are we talking Jared Goff, Trevor Lawrence type of market?
Yes, that is the market. I don't want to get too far into the nuance of numbers because, quite frankly, I don't know them. But based on my conversations, they are not in the Jared Goff and Trevor Lawrence ballpark. And that, to me, speaks volumes about where the negotiations are right now. Again, though, keyword, negotiations. We all know. We've all been through them. We know that it can change in a minute.
We know that it can change in a minute, but at that minute, Tua's not talking $55 million price points. Tua's not talking, hey, I deserve that Trevor Lawrence money. Tua's not there. So when you hear this about another quarterback that is going to dictate how much Jordan Love makes, if I'm the Packers, I'm thinking, okay, let's wait this thing out. Let's take a back seat for a minute. Let's see what Tua gets done at. And Tua might not get done by July 22nd, which is the deadline that Brian Gutekunst informally set for Jordan Love and his contract extension. But when you hear that, you think, okay, what if Tua signs for like $44 million a year? Can you use that as a leverage point against Jordan Love and his camp? So if I'm Love, I'm almost wanting to get this deal done sooner rather than later, because the kind of unofficial timeline that I've set, and take that for what it's worth, but I've said somewhere between, I imagine, July 10th and July 22nd. We've said that for weeks. July 10th and July 22nd. Jordan Love has a football camp in Wisconsin. I believe it's July 16th. And rookies and quarterbacks report 2 days later. Training camp starts July 22nd. So I would imagine if he's technically making a public appearance with his football camp, that deal's probably going to be done. So I would guess somewhere between July 10th and July 22nd is probably the deadline. I've said that for a few weeks now. But I don't know. When I hear this, I don't think it affects Jordan Love. I think this is a Tua thing. Because if you're saying, hey, would I rather have Jordan Love or Tua Tagovailoa right now, the answer's far and away Jordan Love. if you plug Jordan Love into the Miami Dolphins offense, think about how many games the Dolphins are winning. Think about how high-powered that offense is. Think about how many points per game they're scoring. And I know they scored a ton last year with Tua running the show. But I think it takes a full step forward. You put a guy like Jordan Love in that offense. So Jordan Love is and will be a $55+ million man. I just wonder what happens with Tua. But the moral of the story here is no news around Jordan Love, like this Tua news, is good news. No news is good news. And for Jordan Love's sake, I think Jordan Love will be the highest paid quarterback in football, assuming Dak doesn't sign a deal as well with the Dallas Cowboys, an extension there. But no news is good news after hearing that Tua and Miami are very far apart, clearly. Because if Tua's saying the market is the market, he's expecting a $55.5 million payday. But Miami's like, hey, you're not Jared Goff. You're not going to championship games. You didn't bring your team to a Super Bowl a few years ago. You're not Trevor Lawrence. You're not winning playoff games like him, which he did a few years ago. Jordan Love is winning playoff games. He's done everything asked of him. But these are the last two remaining in this draft class that still have to figure out what's next. So it is something for the Packers to keep an eye on, but my hope is, for both camps, this is a done deal before Tua is able to put pen to paper. Hunter, no news is good news. Is that a good way to look at this after hearing what Jeff Darlington on ESPN said about Tua Tagovailoa and the Dolphins?
I mean, I almost feel like it's turned this whole thing into a wash for both sides. Because, like, if Tua caves on this and he signs at the $45 million number that Patrick Mahomes is at and Kyler Murray's sitting at, like, that's just great for Jordan Love because obviously he's going to get more for that. But then at the same time, like, the Packers still want to get a deal done before Dak does, which I think will probably happen. So then in the end, you're just kind of like, okay, it's almost like status quo. Like, this almost negates any leverage that Jordan Love could have had for having, well, you want to get this done before this number goes up even higher. And now the Packers are like, well, maybe not actually. And now we're just back to square one. So it's almost like it doesn't really change anything, but it's because there's been news on both sides, not because there's just like nothing happening.
But let me ask you this, Hunter, because I think you're right about that. But the market is the market. That sentence you have on the screen right now, those 5 words, the market is the market. That's a much stronger argument for Jordan Love than it is Tua Tagovailoa, no? Right, like Jordan Love has more leverage by saying the market is the market than Tua does, in my opinion. I think that sentence fits Jordan Love's narrative a hell of a lot better than it does Tua's. Yeah,
but like Tua's got the stats with it from these couple of seasons that I think that's where he's looking at it from a sense of like, look, I'm putting up the numbers along with where the market is at, so pay me where the market's at. Like, granted, he doesn't have the playoff wins, but he's gotten his team there. And like I said just last week, like, that's all I expect out of a quarterback that's paid in the top 10. Is get the team into the playoffs, because whatever can happen can happen. Tua isn't God. He can't control the weather in Kansas City and have it be one of the coldest games ever. Like, that's not on him to then have to try and like figure that out and adjust to that when he's never had to do that in his life and expect the entire team to be okay with that. Like, that's just not fair to expect of your quarterback. And he's done everything to get his team in a position to try and win. Because once the playoffs hit, it's whatever is going to happen is going to happen.
Tua's not God. He can't control the weather in Kansas City.
I'm not wrong.
Can Jordan Love control the weather in Kansas City?
No, I'm sure there's people in Green Bay who think he can. Aaron Rodgers, I'm sure, thought he could.
Yeah, that's a good point. Rodgers probably thinks he can. But Jordan Love, maybe he can control the weather in AT&T Stadium in Dallas.
Just about every other quarterback can except for Dak, so.
It's a fair point. That's a fair point. All right, I want to do an exercise coming up next. I want to take a look at, I want to define more so the Jordan Love line. Right? I want to make a rule here. I want him playing above this quarterback, but if he plays below this quarterback, it's okay. Type line. We will explain more in just a minute. But first, got to tell you about my friends over at Door County Distillery. Locally produced, handcrafted, and award-winning spirits made locally in beautiful Door County up in Carlsville. If you're heading up to Door County maybe this weekend or for the long weekend, holiday weekend coming up next week, you got to stop in on your way up in Carlsville at Door County Distillery. Local products, delicious products. Do the tours, do the tastings. They are phenomenal. Everything they do it better. And remember, they're local. They're a Wisconsin company. They are so badass and wonderful. Award-winning spirits. Everything they do is like nationally renowned as well. That classic green bottle of gin. Their single malt whiskey has won like 27 gold medals. It's insane, and it's super tasty. I'm a big whiskey fan, and I love their single malt. Also really like the bourbon they make as well, right on site there in Door County. Tons of other products as well. They've got cherry brandy and cherry vodka made with local Door County cherries. It's really, really cool what they do up there, and they're available statewide. DoorCountyDistillery.com is the website to find the retailer nearest you. It's affordable, it's local, it's delicious. Elevate your tailgate, elevate your parties. Obviously, grad parties still going on, family parties, 4th of July parties coming up. Elevate it with Door County Distillery, and you can also check out the QR code right now on the screen as well as on their website, DoorCountyDistillery.com. A huge list of unique cocktail recipes. We take a 60-second timeout when we come back. We establish the Jordan Love line. That's next. It's Mr. Relevant. I'm Alex Strouf. Back at Door County Distillery in Carlsville, Wisconsin, with my friend Beth from Door County Distillery. We're mixing up the peach gin and juice today. That sounds like Snoop Dogg would love it. Talk to me, Beth. What are we mixing?
So we're using our flagship gin today. It's gin, lemonade, a little grenadine, and then our peach wine. So you remember the Carlsville sour we did last year?
I do, very well, yeah.
Same concept. It's just the gradient's gonna be in reverse. So we're gonna start with 1.5 ounces of our gin.
The classic green bottle.
We're gonna do 1 ounce of grenadine, 2 ounces of our lemonade. We're gonna stir that with our bar spoon.
Got it, before we add the wine.
And then we're gonna use the back of our bar spoon to float the peach wine on top. And there we go.
Looks like summer to me, Beth. Cheers.
Cheers.
The peach gin and juice from Door County Distillery with my friend Beth.
Check out their website with a huge list of unique cocktail recipes at DoorCountyDistillery.com. That's DoorCountyDistillery.com.
Yeah, DoorCountyDistillery.com. All right, this is an exercise that I have not fully fleshed out, but I do think it is ultimately going to get us to a good spot in how we evaluate and understand the expectations for Jordan Love coming up in 2024. Because, look, I understand what Jordan Love did at the end of last season. It was better than everybody else. He had the best second half of the season of any quarterback in the NFL. And then he goes on the road in his first playoff game and absolutely lights the world on fire. And by the world, I mean Hunter's favorite team, the Dallas Cowboys. And then the following week, they go to San Francisco. And outside of that really bad final throw, which was Favre-esque, he played a fine game. It was good enough to win up until that point. So we understand this guy is capable of winning the big games. In the national spotlight, by the way, last year, outside of that Monday Night Football blunder late in the season against the Giants, and after some of those other national games earlier in the year, Love was on fire. Think about Thanksgiving against the Lions, Sunday Night Football against the Chiefs, and the national game in Week 18 against the Bears. Like, he was awesome in the national spotlight at the end of the year. And well, obviously, hopefully that continues, and we hope that continues. But we don't know exactly what Jordan Love is yet. I don't feel comfortable saying, yeah, he's a top 3 quarterback in the NFL yet. I think I'm comfortable saying he's in the top dozen and probably even in the top 8 or 9. But the Love line is where I want Jordan Love to live consistently. That's kind of been my word of the offseason, consistency when it comes to Jordan Love in the 2024 season. So it's almost a rankings of sorts. If he plays above it, great. If he plays below it, yuck. That's kind of where I want to establish the Love line, Hunter. And I want to use quarterbacks where we understand consistently what they are. So, for example, quarterback 1 in this exercise is, of course, Patrick Mahomes. Patrick Mahomes is the best quarterback of the modern era, outside of Tom Brady, just from a Super Bowl perspective. But when it comes to both the ability to win games and talent, nobody in the current league, or really as long as I've watched, is better than Patrick Mahomes. So he's 1. Love is obviously below Mahomes there. And if Love plays better than Mahomes, great, right? That's the example of this line. And the NFL is a very week-by-week product. But when we look at the consistency of Love, we want him under Mahomes. We don't want him under Mahomes, but you expect him under Mahomes. Hunter, go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say, do we want to just go through? I've got a list here from Pro Football Focus of they kind of rated all of the quarterbacks after the season was done and at least eliminate some of these guys who were like, yeah, they're probably all year going to be ahead of Jordan Love.
Yeah, let's just rifle through them, right? So, Burrow comes to mind next.
Burrow, Lamar Jackson, Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen.
Yeah, I'm okay with it.
Okay, and now I think this is where we start to get interesting.
Yep.
So then they have Justin Herbert at number 5.
I don't know about that.
Yeah, and then Dak is 6, Stafford 7, Aaron Rodgers 8, Jalen Hurts 9, CJ Stroud 10, and then they put Jordan Love at number 11, and he's the top quarterback for what they consider tier 4, and it's the melting pot of starters.
Who else is in that tier?
We've got Trevor Lawrence, Brock Purdy, Tua, as well as Kirk Cousins, Jared Goff, Kyler Murray, Geno Smith.
Goff is in there.
And then rounding out that group of tier 4 is Caleb Williams.
I've always been referred to as kind of a Kyler Murray doubter. And Caleb Williams, get the hell out of here with that nonsense. I mean, look, we don't know if he's going to be Bryce Young or if he's going to be Peyton Manning, right? Like, we just have no idea. So some of the names on that list would be kind of my definitive, hey, he has to be better than them. Herbert is an interesting name. I think most of the list. Herbert is an interesting name to me, who I know is above him. Lawrence is obviously interesting. You assume there's going to be a bounce-back year of sorts for him. Stroud, you and I talked off the air, but we've said it on the air as well. It was like, those are two guys that I think are going to be tied together for a long time because they each had their coming out year the same year. Last year, obviously, it was the rookie year for Stroud. It was the first full year as a starter for Love. So they're tied together in one way or another. I want him to definitively be better than Jared Goff. Goff had a really good year last year. But if he's worse than Goff, I'm not panicking. So I'm not ready to set the line there. And again, if you want to look at the financial side of things, Goff is a $53.5 million quarterback. Rightfully so. So I don't know that I'm panicking. So where we define the line isn't necessarily where we rank Jordan Love. It's, hey, where do you get into, hey, this isn't good enough territory? Right, we're not ranking the quarterbacks. We're pretty much just dividing, hey, this is the bad area to live in, this is the good area to live in. I don't think Trevor Lawrence is the line. I think Lawrence
because
is
he's
probably
not
above
good
the
line.
line.
Oh, you think Lawrence
he's
is
probably above the line.
Oh, okay. Interesting.
Herbert's above the line.
Yeah.
Mahomes, Allen, Burrow, they're all Jackson, they're above the line.
What about Brock Purdy?
Brock Purdy. So statistically, I want Love to be better than Purdy because I think he's capable of more. But statistics don't equal wins either, right? Wins is not a quarterback stat. So I could use that against Purdy. Yeah, I want Love to be better than Purdy. But Purdy's probably going to be quarterbacking a 14-win team or a 13-win team this year. So would it bother me if Love statistically was a little bit below Purdy? Probably not. I think Purdy's probably underrated, if we use the word correctly. Like, he's probably not given enough credit for the 49ers' success. A name that comes to mind, Hunter, is Deshaun Watson. If he's healthy for a full 18 or 17 games, 18 weeks, you want Jordan Love out playing Deshaun Watson, at least this version of Deshaun Watson. I don't know that you expect him to outplay 2018 Deshaun Watson. But 2024 Deshaun Watson, I would be nervous if Love is comparable to him.
Now, Pro Football Focus, I know we're not ranking the quarterbacks, but I've found this ranking and tier system just fascinating now. They have Deshaun Watson in their tier 5 which is can single-handedly win and lose games. And then they have him rated as the number 23 quarterback in the NFL with his cumulative passing grade at 58.7, which is bad for a quarterback.
I guess I don't know how is the ranking 1 to 100?
Well, I think the best you can be is a 100. But then that passing grade over the past 2 years ranks him 53rd among qualifying passers. So I don't know if I just don't think Deshaun Watson's it anymore. I know that sucks for any Cleveland fans, but he's not it. Like, I really think that the line is sitting at a Trevor Lawrence to Tua area, which is, again, like I've been saying, top third of the league. Like, if you finish up statistically every year for Jordan Love and he is top third of the NFL in passing numbers, like, I think you've hit and you're good. Anything below that, you're okay, this is bad.
Let's establish the two names, essentially, right? So the Love line, if you're in this, it's almost like selecting team captains. I guess for the line above him, it would be the worst quarterback or the least consistent quarterback or the least impressive quarterback above the line, and then the best quarterback below the line. I would say the best quarterback below the line should be Tua. I tend to agree with that. I think it's a guy he's tied to naturally, same draft class, high-powered offense, offensive-minded head coach. I think Tua is that first name below the line. If Jordan Love is dipping beneath Tua's play, that's where you should start to get concerned. I think the name above the line is the part where I'm struggling. Is it Justin Herbert? Is it C.J. Stroud?
Part of me almost wants to say Stroud.
I think you're right.
Because, Justin Herbert, unless things get fixed in L.A. this next year, I just don't know where he's actually at. So, putting him in with a question mark is hard.
I might have too much blind faith in Jim Harbaugh to go in there and fix it, but he really doesn't have any super impressive weapons. Let's say Stroud. So let's go. Stroud is above the Love line. Tua is beneath it. And that's essentially the worst area, right? Like the consistent area, the expectation area where you want Jordan Love to live. Now, again, it's a week-to-week game. So there are going to be weeks where Love looks a hell of a lot more like Patrick Mahomes than he does Tua. But there are going to be more weeks where he looks like maybe Brock Purdy, who I guess we would technically put below the line from a statistics standpoint, than C.J. Stroud, right? It's a week-by-week thing. But when we look at Jordan Love overall for the 2024 season, that's kind of the line I want him living in. Somewhere between Tua, and not even between Stroud, just right around Stroud and Tua. Because think about Tua too, by the way, right? Like Tua's in a really good situation. There's only one offense in the NFL constructed like the Miami Dolphins, and that is the Miami Dolphins. There are no offenses with that much speed and get up like Miami, when you've got A-Chain and Raheem Mostert, who I know is old, but still a really reliable back, and Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle. The pieces that are established around Tua are an amazing situation. So I think the name we talked about before with Jeff Darlington's comments is below the line. I would say Stroud is above the line. Love in Football says a couple things. Anyone could do what Purdy is doing. Jimmy G literally did it already. I don't think he was as consistent and as impressive as Brock Purdy has been. I don't think that's fair to Purdy. But you're right, he did get to a Super Bowl. Jimmy G did. So that part's fair. But I think Purdy is a little bit underrated from a national perspective. And then Herbert and Stroud is okay above the line, but do not say Trevor Lawrence. So Love in Football not sold on Trevor. I'm okay with that. I mean, Trevor was not impressive last year, but I do think in terms of potential, and look, potential is hope, and hope is not a strategy. I get that. Trevor Lawrence has the capabilities of being a top 10 NFL quarterback. I don't think I'd put him in there now. I'd put Love above Lawrence right now. But I think those are two guys that are similar in terms of, hey, where are the expectations for 2024?
I almost think that Trevor Lawrence might end up being this generation's Eli Manning. He's going to have a season where he looks incredible, and you're like, oh my gosh, this is great. He's playing like Peyton Manning. And then he's going to have a season where he is the exact middle of the road quarterback. He throws 25 touchdowns and 20 interceptions and like is just literally just like, okay, he is a net zero for the quarterbacking position and he's middle of the road. And he's going to do that his entire career. And it sucks for him, but I think that's what he might be, especially given the way that people react to him. Like, he's probably just going to be middle of the road quarterback.
Yeah, that's fair. Lawrence, you're referring to. I tend to agree. All right, that's the love line. We'll keep an eye on that as the season gets going, because that's, of course, kind of how it can adjust, right? If Tua is way worse than we anticipate or Lawrence is way better than we anticipate, you know, there's ways to adjust it and look at it a little bit differently. But that's the love line for now. Somewhere around the Stroud-Tua verse. And you hope he's better, right? You hope the line becomes between Mahomes and Burrow. If he's below Burrow, he's fallen off, right? Because that's what you had essentially with Aaron Rodgers for a decade plus. Is okay, he should be the best quarterback in football. We're right up there. Tom Brady, Mahomes at the end of his peak. Rodgers' peak, that is. That's the line. So we'll see. Fun little exercise to talk expectations for Jordan Love ahead of his big contract signing. Big move, but not really, for the Milwaukee Brewers yesterday. If it was 8 years ago, it's a big move. The Brewers acquire 2015 Cy Young Award winner in the American League, Dallas Keuchel from the Seattle Mariners. Keuchel has not pitched in the major leagues this year, has been playing a little bit of AAA ball, but only pitched 10 games in the bigs last year, 14 the year prior. So he's 36 years old. So Dallas Keuchel, I don't want to call it a desperation move because it was a trade for cash considerations. It's more of a low risk, high reward move with the potential of a high reward. But low risk is definitive. This is a low risk move. Pat Murphy has become a beloved MLB manager already in his first season as the manager of the Milwaukee Brewers. He is absolutely beloved. The energy he brings, the fight his team brings, the fire in which they play with. They get another win last night using their 13th different starter of the year. They are now using the term opener more so, though, as Hobie Milner opened the game yesterday for the Brewers. Wisconsin's dad, Brewers add Dallas Keuchel. You're referring to Pat Murphy as Wisconsin's dad there, I assume, Hunter?
Yes, given what we'll be getting to here, I think that's kind of where I've landed on him. And of all of the coaches, I think he's the most dad-like for the pro teams in Wisconsin.
I would agree. Pat Murphy sent a text to the two-time All-Star and Cy Young Award-winning Dallas Keuchel after the Brewers officially traded for him yesterday. Here's what Pat Murphy had to say about his text message in which he sent.
Pat Murphy here. I'm the manager of the Milwaukee Brewers baseball team, the team that you were just acquired by. I'm honored and excited to welcome you to our ball club. Please call me at your earliest convenience. I'd like to speak to you about your work schedule, subsequent contribution or lack thereof to our baseball team. Kindest regards.
It's a 70.
It's just to get them started, you know what I mean?
Subsequent contributions or lack thereof to our baseball team. Kindest or warmest regards, kindest regards. We did have a lengthy discussion several months ago about the worst way to sign off an email. I would put warm regards up there. Kindest regards also up there with it just feels snippy and gross. Kindest regards.
But that's
Pat
exactly
Murphy,
how a
that's what he
dad
said
would
to Dallas
respond. That's exactly how
right.
dads would like finish off a text message, and like the way he was holding his phone with it. Like it was such a dad move, and I love it. Like he's Wisconsin's dad now.
Yeah, something like that. So look, this move for the Brewers, I mean, who just have not been able to stay healthy in terms of their starting rotation. It's a move. You've got just over a month. July 30th is the MLB trade deadline to figure out exactly what moves you want to make. Like, this is a year in which you hope the Brewers are more buyers than sellers, which they've been in past years at the deadline. And you hope they add more of I don't want to say an ace, because I think, look, I know it's way too early to crown him as an ace, but Tobias Myers has been money for them. So he has certainly found a really nice rhythm on the bump for the crew. But you want to add a fiery arm to that. And whether that's going to get somebody, Jack Flaherty from the Detroit Tigers, who's obviously been shopped the last couple of weeks, or somebody like that who's just a consistent arm that's pitched in the major leagues this year, I think that's a beneficial add. Could you add a bat at the deadline? Sure. But you've got to be impressed, too, with what some of these younger guys have done. Joey Ortiz, again, hitting a go-ahead home run last night in the win over the World Series champ Rangers. You had the Rhys Hoskins out of the DH spot 2 nights ago hitting the grand slam that ultimately led to a win for the Crew. So they are winning ball games in just absurd ways and weird ways, but they're finding ways to chip away at it and grind and still have a nice, comfortable cushion above the NL Central. So what the Brewers have been able to do is find ways to win, not the way you expect them to. 13 different starters this year is absurd. 8 different guys have had saves this year. Hobie Milner might be the only guy that has both. I don't mind this trade. It's not super sexy. It'd be much sexier if it was 2017. But I don't mind it. You acquire an older guy, 36 years old, who's won a Cy Young, who's a multiple-time All-Star, multiple-time Gold Glove Award winner. It's worth a shot. If it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out, right? Like Pat Murphy said it, your subsequent contributions or lack thereof. If there's a lack thereof, it's so low risk, I don't mind, Hunter.
I think the lack thereof line is Pat Murphy maybe signaling a little bit that we've got something else coming. We need a stopgap, so maybe you don't even actually see the field for us. He's listed as the potential starter now for the game today, which actually right. I think actually started like 4 minutes ago. I thought it was a 1:10 start potentially. But like, I think that's really what this is like, okay, maybe we can get a couple of starts out of him before we actually bring somebody else in here, to figure out a way to keep this bullpen from having to get used as much. Because like I said it on the last show, they can't sustain the way that they're winning games. I know they're figuring it out right now, but once they get into the end of September and they're into a race to try and win the division or potentially hold off St. Louis, or if Chicago somehow figures it out, like they're only like, I think they're 9 or 10 games back. Like they're still within striking distance. So you haven't just run away with this division yet. They need something to be able to win games late in the year. So there's going to be more moves coming. And yeah, you gave up a little bit of cash to get a guy that maybe you get a couple starts out of him. If he's playing great, right, then you keep him. If he doesn't, okay, right, he's gone. Whatever.
It's low risk, high reward. And you were correct. Dallas Keuchel, the starter today for the Brewers. 2 outs in the top of the first. There was a no-hitter going at AmFam Field. 2 outs, top of the first. And a 2-2 count right now against his third batter. So Keuchel making his first Major League start of the year, but no stranger to Major League starts. As I mentioned, a Cy Young Award winner back in 2015. So we will see if the no-hitter continues as we wrap up the show. You learn something new every day. We all learned something new today. We start with Tiny Ant's Hunter Vaughn. What'd you learn, Hunter?
I've learned that I really don't like Twitter, in particular college recruiting Twitter. So if anybody follows Wisconsin Badgers recruiting, there was a corner from Florida, Raheem Stroud. He was a 4-star corner, class of 2025, verbally commits to Wisconsin. 3 days after he does that, he then gets an offer from UCF, which from where Raheem Stroud lives, much closer to home. He then decommits to the Badgers, decides to commit to UCF. Guy's 16 years old, and he's got grown-ass men in his replies saying how kids these days have no loyalty. Like, Daryl, if you get a new job offer and they're going to pay you more money and it's a better work-life balance, you're going to take the job. So you're going to get into a 16-year-old's DMs and tell him how he has no loyalty. Like, correct. Stop it. Yep. He's a kid. Of course he's going to change his mind. He will probably commit to 3 other schools before he actually signs his letter of intent. But no, we have to bully teenagers into coming to my favorite college football team. Like, I love college football, but at the same time, it's crap like this that I just hate it. It's gross and it's toxic and it's stupid. You're a grown man and you're tweeting at a teenager to come to your favorite school. Like, grow up.
Well said. Yeah, it's well said. I like that. Yeah, I like that. But yeah, it's a cesspool. We've always referred to it as a cesspool. It's Twitter for you. It's what you get.
I know.
People are going to be pissed off.
I just want more from society. I want more from people.
Yeah, and I like your optimism and your hope and your gratitude, but we'll see if that actually happens. What I learned is about celebrities. I'm going to do exactly what you don't want me to do, but she's much older than that. Jennifer Lopez, we're all familiar.
Yeah.
Singer, actress. Currently going through, allegedly, according to TMZ, some marital woes with Ben Affleck, second time around. Jennifer Lopez flew commercial yesterday. Like, not first class, commercial. She's Jennifer Lopez. That seems problematic to me. There's got to be something going on. So I just hope everything's okay with Jennifer Lopez. Flying commercial to Paris yesterday. There's a Jenny from the Block joke to be made. But I was surprised to learn this. If I had Jennifer Lopez money, I don't think I'm flying commercial. But hey, more power to her. I'm 6'3", man. Like, I can't really, I've never flown first class. I feel like I could really enjoy the leg room, though, because I always feel very squished on a plane. So power to Jennifer Lopez for flying commercial all the way to Paris. That's a heck of a job by her. That's what I learned in TMZ today while I was reading the tabloids today, Hunter.
So you're proud of her for being a normal person by flying the way that everyone else has to fly. You're proud of that.
Yeah.
Like, that's how low your bar is for, like, being proud of somebody. Like, you should be proud of me every single day.
For Jennifer Lopez, yeah.
Okay, great.
That's how low the bar is.
She's an adult. Like, that's just, I don't know. That's kind of weak.
Okay. Well, I'm proud of her. Jenny from the Block. Just to chip off the old block is Jennifer Lopez. All right, that does it for us today. The no-hitter continues at AmFam Field as Dallas Keuchel, 2 strikeouts, no hits, no walks. Actually, perfect game, in the first inning. Threw 15 pitches, 11 of them strikes. Man still got it. We'll continue the no-hit watch, assuming it continues for the next 40 minutes. On Kyle Brust-Nortman, beginning at 2 o'clock on ESPN, Wisconsin with Kyle Wallace, Ben Brust, Brad Nortman, and myself. We're with you from 2 to 5 on ESPN Milwaukee, 2 to 4 on ESPN Madison. As for this program, we're back with you on Friday from Summerfest, beginning at 12:30 on the ESPN Madison, ESPN Milwaukee YouTube streams, the ESPN Madison Facebook page, and available wherever you get your podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and all the in-betweens. Of course, brought to you by Door County Distillery, locally produced and handcrafted, award-winning spirits of the best, DoorCountyDistillery.com. Thanks to Hunter. Thanks to Tiny Hands for running the show. We're back with you on Friday. We'll talk to you then. Have a great couple of days. Enjoy the NBA draft. We'll unpack it all on Friday. I'm Alex Strouf. Peace.